Hello, everyone. Welcome to Casual Experts Only. I'm Mike, and I actually have a couple cool announcements before we jump into some news and then the main meat of this episode. So, first off, our show, Casual Experts Only, is now part of the Culture Nerd Podcast Network, which you probably would have noticed if you paid attention to our new logo for the show. So that is really awesome. Me and Luke are both really excited about this. But along with this collaboration, Luke and I will also be doing a show for the Cultured Nerd Network called the Cultured Pull List. It's going to be about new comics that have come out. Me and Luke are going to be discussing those as well as some older storylines that we just kind of want to talk about. So yeah, we're really excited for that. The first episode of the Cultured Pull List is set to drop this Friday, the 27th of January. So be sure to keep your eyes peeled for that coming out. And yeah, those are the two announcements. Me and Luke are super excited for both of these things. So thank you everybody who has been supporting this podcast. You know, however long you've been listening, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Now, hopping into some news. So first things first. Apparently, Ezra Miller has pled guilty to an unlawful trespass and burglary case in Vermont. I'm sure a lot of you have been following any sort of, news with Ezra Miller or The Flash or anything. Have probably heard about all the different stuff that Ezra Miller's gotten himself into, or themselves into. But Ezra Miller's attorney did give a statement saying that Ezra Miller pled guilty this morning to a misdemeanor unlawful trespass in Vermont Superior Court and accepted the conditions imposed by the court. Ezra would like to thank the court and the community for their trust and patience throughout this process, and would once again like to acknowledge the love and support they have received from their family and friends, who continue to be a vital presence in their ongoing mental health. Also, the Superior Court Judge Carrie A. McDonald-Cady, told the actor during the actual court proceeding, "The court will impose the sentence here. We accepted your plea of guilty. We will impose the fine here of $500 and the sentence of 80 to 90 days, which is all suspended with probation." So the term of probation will be 1 year. And as part of the plea arrangement, the state will dismiss without prejudice counts 1 and 2 of the burglary and petty larceny. So instead of going to prison, Ezra has to pay $500 and is on probation for 1 year. And apparently Miller can't drink alcoholic beverages to the extent that it interferes with their employment, the welfare of the actor's family, or their self, or any other person per the judge. So that's a little vague, but... and Miller will also have to let the probation officer know the location of their job and employment. So yeah, all that to say... not going to prison, but obviously has to jump through some hoops during this whole probationary period. Yeah, so not really going to get much into, Ezra Miller and all the crazy allegations that they have collected over the last year or so, but yeah, that is that. So... moving on to Jason Momoa, who apparently made a statement to Variety. This was during the Sundance Film Festival, where he was promoting his work on Deep Rising, which is a new documentary he is narrating. And Variety did ask him about his role going forward as Aquaman. And Momoa replied, "I'll always be Aquaman. Ain't nothing coming in there and taking shit. There might be some other characters too. I can play other things too. I can be funny and savage and charming." So, very vague. I mean, him saying I'll always be Aquaman doesn't mean he's going to be Aquaman going forward necessarily. It just means that his version will always exist and he'll always be, kind of like pretty much every Batman actor in the past is still considered Batman, same thing will happen with Momoa here, whether he's recast. And there's been a lot of speculation and rumors that he's going to be playing Lobo in future DC movies. So all that can still happen given this statement. It's very vague. I know some people were kind of making this seem like, oh, he's continuing as Aquaman, but that's still not clear. Because James Gunn still has not released his slate or any announcements about the new DC that he is planning with Peter Safran. I'm kind of expecting him to release something this week, So definitely keep a lookout on our YouTube channel and on this podcast because we'll definitely be covering that once those announcements come out. Definitely going to happen before the end of this month, but we still, we don't really have that. We have like a little over a week, about a week left in this month, so it's got to be this week. Last little bit of news that I really want to cover is a rumor going around that the fourth Tom Holland Spider-Man movie might start to film at the end of this year. Now, this is coming from a Twitter user. It's called Spider-Man News. I really don't know anything about this user, whether they've had any scoops that were reliable or anything. But this scooper did tweet rumor. Spider-Man 4 is expected to start filming end of 2023. A $200 million budget will be set for the film. And I suppose that makes sense. Like, there have been no official announcements from Sony, no like inklings of like Tom Holland like getting ready for the the role again. But it is still like several months till that would potentially happen. There have been a lot of reports going around the last few months that that the fourth movie will come out in 2024, but it remains to be seen whether that's actually true or even if this rumor of filming is true. I think it would make sense because I would think Marvel and Sony would probably want to have one more Spider-Man movie come out before Secret Wars, but hard to tell for sure until anything official comes out. But anyway, that is all the news to cover today. Hope you enjoy the rest of this episode where my friend James and I will be discussing the cult hit Terrifier 2, as well as the, not so much of a hit Black Adam. Hello, everyone. Today I'm joined by my friend James.
Hello.
And today we're going to be talking about Terrifier 2 and Black Adam. Now, those movies may seem unrelated, but in fact, they both came out in October.
That is true.
And that's pretty much it. No, that and we saw them both together. So I actually did record a Black Adam. Like I did talk about it with Luke, but then the audio got corrupted. So I figured I might as well talk to you about it. And I know you enjoyed it. We talked a bit. We talked about it a bit when we saw it. So
yeah,
figured might as well talk about it again. All right, but let's start with Terrifier 2. Now, first off, if any of you are unaware of what the hell this movie is, Terrifier 2 is an indie horror slasher movie. Obviously, a sequel to Terrifier, the first one, and technically the fourth appearance of the main killer, Art the Clown, because he first showed up in The Ninth Circle, which was a 2008 short, and then he showed up in All Hallows Eve, which was like a horror movie, but it was like kind of like it was just some girl like watching a bunch of like.
It was a bunch of his short films, all like compiled into one movie.
Okay. And him being Damien Leone, the director of the movies. Yeah. An independent filmmaker, and then he directed, or he came out with Terrifier, the first one, which I think came out in like what 2014. 2014. Well, let me look it up. 2016. Yep. Okay. And then it's been 6 years since that one, but I'm pretty sure they started filming this one in like 2017.
Yeah.
And it just now got a release, but it released in a lot of theaters. I'm pretty sure it did release near us, but we ended up seeing it on Shudder.
Or released on Halloween.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it first hit theaters in like October 9th. And then it was on Shudder.
Yeah.
Near like
the end
a little
of
after Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it made a little over $10 million, which is honestly a lot considering they only spent $250,000 on it.
Yeah, I'm looking right here right now. Box office, it says $12 million.
Yeah,
which is quite a big upside.
Especially for like a very independent movie. Like a lot of times when people say indie movies, there's still usually like an independent studio, but they're still like a decently funded studio. But this is like very independent. Like, didn't he use like a Kickstarter?
For
this
like
movie?
Crowdfunded for like $250,000 or something like that.
Yeah, and to make 10 million to make 12 million off of that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently Damien Leone, the director, he soon after the movie came out, he signed with a talent agency, WME, which apparently is a pretty decent talent agency. They're pretty big in the
Mm-hmm.
representation world, so that's pretty cool. Hopefully, he'll be able to actually like get higher budget movies made, that he wants to
I
make.
would like to see it.
And
He's a
yeah,
I'm a fan of all of his work that I've seen.
yeah, and it'd be cool, like, yeah, to see it Terrifier 3, because obviously Terrifier 2 has a larger budget than the first one did.
Mm-hmm.
You can just kind of see that in the quality
Yeah,
of
very
it. It
drastic difference.
it would be kind of cool if they like kept increasing in quality.
Mm-hmm. Because I think with
I
the success of this latest movie, I think
Yeah,
they could make the big jump to, a fully fledged
yeah.
studio movie. Which
Well,
I
and
don't know if the
yeah,
director would want to do
yeah,
that, because then
yeah,
he wouldn't be able to make all the choices that he wants to, like he
right,
was able to with his own movie,
yeah,
because he's making all the
yeah.
decisions. So really,
Hmm.
we'll just have to wait and see what he wants to do.
I mean, he could sign on with like a more independent film
That
studio,
is true.
which I think would probably fit him better, fit
Hmm.
his style better. Uh, but I would like to see another Terrifier movie. That would be kind of cool, and I would also be interested in other stuff. But I think just the success of this movie kind of shows, that even though it was still pretty small compared to like huge movies, but it was a crowd-funded movie. Like the fact that a movie that small could make that much money kind of shows that there is an audience
Yeah, and I feel
for
like movies that
lower
are just
budget horror movies.
crowd funded and like that
Hmm.
small, it's not a very big movie, was shown all
No.
over the US and stuff in a lot of
Hmm.
movie theaters that,
Well, yeah, and it was worldwide
yeah,
too.
yeah,
I think it had a worldwide
it had
release.
a lot of, a lot of
Hmm.
publicity.
Well, and I think too, like a lot of the big studio horror movies, they definitely make like way more money, but they
Yeah.
also cost a lot more money, and they usually get a lot of negative reviews. Like I haven't seen any negative reviews about this movie. It seems like everybody, granted that could be because everybody who went to see it wanted to, was interested in
Yeah.
it, but at the same time, horror movies generally get more hate,
Yeah.
especially
Which,
big budget ones. So part of me hopes this might be some sort of like might cause maybe some more change in the horror genre.
I mean,
And
right now I'm looking at
mhm,
Google and it says on IMDb, it has a 6.3 out of 10 rating. On Rotten
mhm,
Tomatoes, it has an 86 out of 100, and Metacritic a
yeah,
59%.
yeah,
Those are, I'd say, are pretty good ratings
yeah.
for a
I
horror
mean,
movie.
they're higher than Halloween Ends.
Yeah, that's true. That was a disappointment.
Yeah.
But but I mean, for a horror movie, I think those are pretty good, because horror movies are kind of held
Yeah.
on a different standard than a lot of
Yeah.
other like dramas and stuff.
Yeah. But anyway, all that to say, what did you think about the movie overall?
I think overall, I had a really good time just watching it and
Hmm.
experiencing it, because
Yeah.
it was just kind of a good, fun thrill ride just to watch it. The
Hmm.
special effects, I think, was the most outstanding thing. And for,
Yeah.
having such a low budget, they were able to do a
Hmm.
lot with it. There's only one part in the movie where it was just kind of like, yeah, that doesn't look the most like,
Yeah.
that doesn't look the
Right.
best. But every other single part of the movie, you know,
When Kenny died,
yeah,
or
what?
whatever his name
Yeah,
is, I think it's Kenny.
when he was in the Halloween store and he killed
Yeah.
the clerk, but like every single other
The
like part
rest
of the
of the
movie was
movie.
just
Yeah.
phenomenal in what they were able to accomplish with
Yeah.
such a low budget. And
Hmm.
I just thought it was a really good um thrill ride throughout the whole thing. And 2
Yeah.
hours and 18 minutes. It's not like a short horror movie, but it's not like
No,
it dragged on
it
that
doesn't
much.
feel that long though,
Yeah,
honestly.
like this, you know, it's fun enough to watch where you don't get bored. When
Hmm.
contrasting to like Halloween Ends, I saw that like just a couple weeks before, and I was
Yeah.
bored about like 45 minutes into the movie. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a really different way to make horror movies, and this one just has it, especially with
Mm-hmm.
Art being the way he is, where
Yes.
you're so enthralled with his character because he's funny,
Mm-hmm.
he's funny,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's comedic, but also he might do something that makes you want to, not look at the screen
Hurl.
anymore,
Yeah. Right.
which I
Yeah.
think is a
I heard
great
in
dynamic contrast for it.
some screenings for some countries, people were actually like puking and stuff, and they were actually giving people barf bags when they were going in.
I think that's probably a little overblown, but
Yeah,
and
probably. I
probably more
mean,
so a marketing gimmick. But I can see
probably.
if a really squeamish person went and saw this
Oh yeah,
movie, they
absolutely.
might have a problem getting through one of the scenes.
I
But
mean, if yeah, like if you're turned off by the gore and like the Halloween movies, then you're gonna like yeah, you're gonna flip your lid with this.
because I think this one, for one of the more mainstream movies that are just like shown on like movie theater screens and stuff, now
Hmm.
like the dark dark stuff that you can't see in the movie theaters. This is probably one of the more
Yeah.
like graphic
Yes. Oh yeah.
movies that you can just go out and see in the theaters. I I
Yeah.
I thought.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, and like they got away with so much because it's an
He just
indie
said,
movie.
"Screw you! I'm not obeying your laws."
I mean,
For
I don't even think they had to submit it to the
Yeah, they didn't.
MPAA.
They
So
didn't.
yeah.
So
So they're just like, fuck it, which sounds kind of weird, saying this, but it's almost kind of a breath of fresh air,
well, yeah, because it's
to
like
see blood and
there was
guts. No, but
so much like artistic freedom in the way that they were
mm-hmm.
doing these the the gore and all that stuff with a lot of these kills. It was just
Yeah,
it was kind of like you said, refreshing. Like just
yeah,
for like I keep on going back to a lot of the kills in like Halloween movies, like most
mm-hmm,
recent one, Halloween Ends. It's just
mm-hmm.
a lot of lackluster stuff that they don't show.
Yes,
It's just like stab, stab here, stab
yeah,
here. There's like rarely any blood. It's just kind of like
uh-huh,
it's just very neutered because they have
yeah,
to go through all the screenings and all that stuff to make
mm-hmm,
it open for everybody to watch. But this, it didn't have to go through that, so it was a lot more
yeah,
enjoyable just to watch. Just it's fun. It was
mm-hmm.
a fun watch.
Yeah. A lot of big studio horror movies feel really sanitized with their violence and everything. Not all of them, but the majority.
Yeah,
Even the good ones, and a lot of times, I kind of walk out of them thinking like that was barely R rated. It was like only R rated for like one scene, or something like that.
hmm
So it was almost kind of nice to just see them like let loose with the gore and stuff, but also like have a lot of creative kills too. Like
yeah,
which I thought was kind of interesting, kind of fun in a morbid way.
yeah,
I think in recent memory, like the only I was talking to Luke recently about the Hellraiser movies, and it's like in particular the new one. I
yeah.
was kind of pleasantly surprised with that one that it had like as much gore and stuff as it did. Like not as much as this movie, but still more than your average,
It did. It
studio
had a
Hellraiser
good amount
movie.
of gore, but
Yeah.
like you were saying, there with Terrifier, there's a lot of creativity with a lot of the way he does things.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
In a movie like Hellraiser, there's not a lot of creativity. What I saw, there was a lot of just like
Mm-hmm.
there's a chain coming from somewhere and it hooks the
Yeah.
guy or
Yeah.
whatever, and it's just like
Yeah.
it doesn't take that much like effort. But in this
Yes. No, that's
movie,
definitely.
like okay, in the one scene, he kills the one woman and he leaves the room.
Mm-hmm.
He comes back and he has salt and like bleach, and then he rubs
Oh
it
my
into
god,
her
that was
after.
so.
You know, the stuff
Yeah,
like that you don't normally like. That's so sadistic, and you wouldn't normally see that
I
in a movie.
know.
But
Oh
no, he just
no.
fucking grinds the salt into her
Yeah, that
wounds on her
was.
back, and I'm like,
Oh my
he's just
god.
laughing the whole time. It's just something that you
Yeah.
normally don't see.
Speaking of that freaking scene, oh my gosh. Yeah, I remember like the first time I saw it, man, I was like, what the fuck? And like even our friend even left the room. He was like in the middle of eating, and
Yeah,
he was like, I'm leaving.
I'm done with
But
this.
yeah, man, she should have just given Art some candy.
I agree.
probably would have had a less fucked up
I
death.
mean,
But yeah, like just I mean, what really freaked me out about that scene was just the fact that like she was just like kept being alive.
yeah,
Like
which
everything he was doing to her.
which that's the thing is like it kind of suspends disbelief because it is a
Yes,
horror movie and blah blah
absolutely.
blah, because like halfway through that she would have died from like blood loss and like shock and she wouldn't be feeling
Yeah,
something.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
like after and then like her mom finds her and she's still alive and you're like, oh
Yeah,
okay,
he's just still
okay,
hacking right. Yeah, she's
yeah,
like, "Mom." And you're like, "Okay, well,
yeah.
this is obviously yeah."
Yeah, which that's not a problem for me though, because it's just like
No, I
it
mean,
feeds the fire of being a goofy over the top
well,
movie,
yeah, it's not trying to be, a super obviously not trying to be a hyper realistic movie because frickin' Art blew his brain out
and then
in the
he's just,
first
oh, I'm
movie.
back, well,
Yeah,
and there's
right,
the
exactly.
apparition of
Well,
like
and
a little like
yeah, that
demon
little
girl,
clown
but
girl,
it's not a
yeah.
realistic movie. It's just kind of goofy.
No, it's just yeah, it's just like it's meant to be shocking, but it does it in a way that I think is somewhat enjoyable if you're into that kind of stuff at all.
Yeah,
Um, like I think the ending scene where like what's her face of Victoria
yeah,
basically gives birth to Art's head or
yeah.
something like oh my
It's
god.
just goofy. I,
Yeah.
I enjoy goofy horror
Yeah.
movies, but also I do
Yeah.
enjoy really, really, serious and graphic ones. This one's graphic and
Mhm.
goofy, and I like it.
Yeah, right. Like it definitely toes the line of being goofy but also just, having some quality and interesting aspects to it. Like I think the writing is a lot better
It was.
in this one than the first
I
one.
would have to agree.
Um the first one like it has like the creative and really fucked up kills in it, and of course Art being himself, but like there wasn't really much story to it,
Yeah.
and the like all the like characters in it were really stupid. Like it didn't like make sense half the stuff they were doing.
Yeah.
It was basically like most of it was just like an excuse to get killed by Art. This one had more of a story to it, and they even kind of had a final girl character in it. Kind
Hmm.
of like a Laurie Strode character, Sienna,
Yeah.
which was it was an interesting aspect to it. Because I think for me, like I didn't, I do enjoy Art doing his thing, but at a certain point, I feel like you can only do so much, like killing people before it gets a little bit dry,
Yeah.
a little bit stale. So I think that kind of threw a little bit of a twist to it, but didn't take away from Art either, because it seems like he's still alive.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's Art's franchise.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
it's
He's the main
yeah,
character.
he's the main character. It's all about him. It's just it's
Hmm.
nice to have the background noise being
Yeah.
a not completely awful plot.
Right. Yeah.
And the plot isn't terrible. It's not the
Yeah.
best, and it
No.
keeps you interested.
Yeah. Right. It's enough
With
to.
Sienna's father, like all that, like it's kind of
Yeah.
mystery and all that.
It
Um,
seems like she's kind of connected to Art
yeah, it's
somehow.
really weird the way
Is
they like it's
I kind of hope that gets fleshed out in like a sequel.
yeah,
Because it does feel like they left enough open that I really hope that they plan on making a sequel.
yeah. I would really like to see a sequel go more like into that. Because like
Yeah,
when
because
I
like
was first seeing
what the
it,
hell was that sword?
like when I first saw it, I was like, okay,
Yeah,
it's weird. It's kind of like maybe Art's their dad, and then it's like I don't know, that
yeah,
doesn't make any
I
sense.
kind of thought that too.
And
Yeah,
and then I'm just like, well, this doesn't make any sense. And now she's
no,
resurrecting, and I'm like, what the hell? And
right. Well, and they kind of introduce a supernatural element to Art
yeah,
because like he was able to get into her dreams,
yeah.
kind of like Freddy Krueger, but not quite. But and then they never really explain that. Plus, he came back to life. So
It's definitely he's kind of like an it character where he's kind of
yeah,
I feel like it's kind of like a demon thing that's kind of
mm-hmm,
like taking this form.
right.
It's kind of hard to see it without actually any like it's hard to put your finger on it without actually like knowing anything about it.
Yeah,
It's just
right.
all
Yeah, it's
speculation.
he's a very vague character still.
Which I guess it's
Um,
kind of hard to put anything to it because he doesn't speak. at all. So
Yeah.
it's so it's kind of hard to
Right.
just to figure it out. But
Yeah. Yeah, I think too. I think the acting was a little better in this movie. Like not by everybody, but by like the main cast, I'd say.
yeah,
Like Lauren Lavera, she was Sienna. She did a good job.
yeah,
Um, her friends weren't bad either, and of
not
course David
terrible.
Howard Thornton
It was really really
was
good.
really good as art. Yeah, his performance obviously makes these movies
Hmm.
and made this movie. Notice the fact where it's he's basically miming everything because he doesn't speak, but he still manages to be funny and scary, at the same time.
Yeah, because the facial expressions really do
Yeah.
it. Which I was reading that like the face that they
Mm-hmm.
it's like a fully like it's not a mask. It's like
Is it
it's like a
prosthetics?
prosthetic that's attached to his face, so everything you can see all of his facial
Right.
movements, and it's a like really high quality, so you can see
Yeah.
everything, and
Yeah.
that's what really
It's a
makes
really
this
good
character
prosthetic.
what really
Yeah.
is perfect because you can see like this the joy that he puts on, and then he puts
Yeah.
on his
Yeah.
angry face or his like sulking face, when you're
Yeah.
not going
Yeah. It's
for his
so
joke,
good.
and then he gets all sad, and then he gets all angry,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I
Mm-hmm.
it's really really a I think it's a really interesting way to do a horror character because we're so like with a lot of the horror characters that we're used to being like
Mm-hmm.
Jason and
Yeah.
Leatherface and Michael
A
Myers.
lot of them wear
They're all
masks.
masked. They're just stone
Yeah.
cold. You don't see
Yeah.
anything. You know, like
Yeah. It's
Leatherface. You could tell he's got a lot of like emotion and stuff because
yeah.
he portrays himself differently. But like Jason and Michael, they're just kind of like
Yeah.
deadpan, walking eternally to kill you. But
They don't talk and you can't
yeah,
see their
it's a breath
face.
of fresh air. Even though Art looks like he wears a mask, even like that could
Mm-hmm.
just be his face, but like we know it's a
Mm-hmm.
mask, so it's just kind of a breath of fresh air to see, a lot more personality into a killer.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, the face reminds me a lot of like a lot of drawing, like comic drawings of Joker,
Yeah, that is
and
true.
even his facial expressions and stuff. I kind of dig it. Yeah. So apparently, for the role, the actor who plays Art, David Howard Thornton, and he only played Art in the movies,
Yeah,
the Terrifier movies. There was another actor for
the
Art's
short
first two
films.
appearances.
Yes.
But apparently, in an interview, he said that he took inspiration from comedy legends that were great with physical comedy and silent comedy, like Charlie Chaplin, Rowan Atkinson, and Doug Jones.
Hmm.
Um, and apparently, he was good friends with Stephen Carl Stephenson, who plays who played Robbie Rotten
Hmm.
on
Yep.
Lazy Town,
Yep.
and apparently he learned a lot from him and brought that to the role.
Okay.
That's kind of interesting, knowing the background and kind of the inspiration he took for the physical, very like entirely physical performance that he gives.
Yeah.
Overall, it was a pretty fun movie. If you're into really gory slasher type stuff, and by far probably like the best independent horror movie I've seen, honestly. Which I can't say I've seen that many, but most of them are like low budget, and you can tell they're low budget.
Even just
You
like
know,
independent movies in general, like
yeah.
those like good ones. But like
Mm-hmm.
I'd put this kind of on the same like level because it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's a different style of movie, yes, but I think it makes up for it in a lot of different ways. For
Mm-hmm. Well,
it,
yeah, for the genre,
yeah, for
like
the yeah,
it's
like I think it's
it's very
definitely
creative
worth
and.
seeing if you're a fan of the genre,
Mm-hmm.
and if you
Mm-hmm.
heard any bad press or anything or gonna make you throw
Mm-hmm.
up, I just watch it
Well,
anyway.
and if you're a horror fan who's tired of like really sanitized horror
Yeah,
movies,
just boring
then
and
definitely
yeah,
and generic. And I will say about this, he kind of breaks away from a certain trope with like horror movies, which I feel like is like gratuitous nudity for no reason. Like the only time, like it's especially like lower budget horror movies, kind of just like throw that stuff in there. They're like boobies, you know. But I feel like there's like a little nudity in the Terrifier movies, but it's always like as part of like art's deranged
Yeah.
killing or torture, you know.
Hmm.
So there isn't like it's it's kind of
Uh,
a trope, especially with like 80s horror movies where like they always get killed when they're like teenagers having sex or something, you know.
yeah. Yeah, I think they have the perfect amount in the movies and stuff like that. Like in the
Yeah.
first one, there was the one scene where it was a completely naked lady, but like
Yeah, but
it was
it was
part of
because he was sawing
it
her.
was sawing her in
Yeah,
half. But
yeah.
eh,
He didn't want to get her clothes dirty.
no, that would be awful.
All right, so Black Adam. Um, yeah. What did you think about Black Adam?
So I came into this movie not expecting much.
Yeah, I wasn't really
I
sure
was not very
what you were gonna
sure
think of it. Yeah.
because lately, after Endgame for Marvel movies,
Mm-hmm.
I've been a little not impressed with a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the movies that have been coming out
Yeah.
that are superhero,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in that area. I've
Mm-hmm.
not been, I've kind of lost a lot of my uh, interest in superhero
Yeah.
movies. They're kind of a
Sure.
lot of them. The only reason I was like into the Marvel stuff is because, oh, I can't wait to see the end. And then you're like, well, it's not
Right.
the end because,
Mm.
we're gonna make
Endgame was
another
kind of an
20
end, but
billion movies. And I
right.
was kind of tired.
And series.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just a little tired with superhero movies.
Yeah.
I've been mildly impressed with a lot of the DC movies that have been coming
Mm-hmm.
out lately.
Yeah.
I do like James Gunn's Suicide Squad. That one came out. I
Yeah.
like the Joker. That one was really good,
Oh yeah, that was good.
And this one, I really enjoyed this
Mm-hmm.
movie because it's a
Yeah.
breath of fresh air, like we were saying with
Mm-hmm.
Terrifier. It's a
Yeah.
breath of fresh air in the genre, I think, where it's still a superhero
Mm-hmm.
movie. It's kind of a coming of age story for the character,
Yeah.
but not in the same way.
Right. Well, it's because he was like displaced
Yeah,
from, and he'd only been Black Adam for like
just a little
you
bit,
know
just a little bit.
like a few days before he got in prison,
Yeah.
probably.
So I think it was a nice departure from a normal
Mm-hmm.
superhero movie. I think it was
Yeah.
uh, pretty fun to watch. A lot of the action in it made me go, "Ooh,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool." You don't normally see that in a
Yeah.
movie of this. The,
The
the
action was pretty
audience, the
badass.
audience that they normally go for in a
Mm-hmm.
superhero movie. I don't. I think it's a good departure from what they're normally used to,
Yeah.
which I've
Yeah, I do feel like a lot of comic book movie action has kind of become a little stale.
it's very
Um,
dry. It's just kind of like two guys flying punch and then they go to the
yeah,
ground and they punch some more. But with this it's like, he's fighting a lot of like armed like, mortal people.
yeah. So he's more just like
Just kind of like
totally
screwing around
destroying
with
them.
them where
Yeah.
like the first scene where he shows up after he's like been summoned from
Hmm.
from his prison.
Oh yeah,
Like that scene
that
is
scene was
so
really cool.
badass. Where he's
Yeah,
just
I
like
know.
completely decimating that whole squad.
Yes.
I thought that was really, really cool. Like this, it was so much fun to watch. I was sitting in the movie theater.
Hmm.
I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe they're
Absolutely.
doing this in this movie." I,
I
I couldn't
know.
believe it, and I was impressed with overall the whole movie.
Hmm.
And I thought The Rock did a really good job. Normally,
Yes.
I'm kind of a I'm not the biggest fan of The Rock because
Hmm.
I've just been like, oh, he's kind of does the same character over and over and over.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, it works
I
and
think
he
he.
does really
Yeah.
good.
I think it. Yeah. I think he works really well for this character.
Yeah,
Just kind of like I think overall, like some of his character, he just doesn't give a fuck. You know, like the whole movie, like he just like breaks through walls
yeah, he
instead
just
of
like yeah,
using a
just
door. He just like
floats right through it.
right, he just kills people, which I really liked that he floated because almost every superhero that flies, they make them fly like you would normally just like kind of um horizontally,
Kind of
but
like a
the way he
Superman.
yeah, like Superman. you know,
He just kind of
even
vertically
like,
floated away, kind of
yeah,
wispily.
which reminded me a lot of like the Injustice games.
Yeah,
His in those games, he kind of floated around like that, and I think it was kind of a unique way to show a character that can fly because we've seen so many by now.
yeah,
And also, just like he's probably one of the most like physically imposing actors to like play a comic book character
yeah.
because he's just like a huge dude.
Hmm.
So I thought that was cool. And yeah, like you said, like the action that was in this movie was definitely a breath of fresh air. Like it was just very cool. I think towards the end it got a little bit like CGI messy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
In a few scenes, I would say like in like a few scenes I kind of wish they had made um Sabak like at least partially practical or something.
yeah,
Because there are a few shots where he looks a little like video gamey,
yeah. That is true.
but in general, like the action was really good. And like as a DC fan, it was really cool seeing Doctor Fate
Mm,
and Hawkman
hmm.
and Black Adam, like all three in live action. And like
Yeah,
I didn't think I needed to see a Hawkman versus Black Adam showdown, but it was really cool to see. And like yeah, like I for whatever reason, like a lot of people, I think part of the problem is that there have been so many really good like high concept superhero movies or like really well written ones like Logan, Joker, stuff like that, the Batman, all those other ones.
yeah.
I guess I should mention The Dark Knight. Um and so I think a lot of times people kind of judge all superhero movies off of that as if every single one has to has some like complex story and theme or something.
Hmm.
But like some movies, especially superhero movies, can just be fun. Just be like badass action.
Yeah,
I think the problem is with like some movies, like I think some Marvel movies do this when the story itself isn't great, but the action isn't really that great either, so it doesn't really have any draw to it. This movie, like the really cool fight scenes are really the draw,
I would
and
agree.
it's really a fun time. Like I'm really not, I really don't get a lot of the hate. Like I feel like I have actually seen a lot of people really dig this movie, so I think people who can just kind of like have fun with an action like a superhero action movie are really enjoying this movie. Like nobody's saying this deserves an Academy Award or
No,
anything,
no.
but it's like a really fun movie, and it's kind of a, like you said, a breath of fresh air to just kind of have a superhero movie that didn't try so hard to be like a really serious
I,
movie.
and I think that's what like I think so many people are just looking for like
Hmm.
the the grand scheme of like they want this to be intertwined with everything else, kind of like the
Hmm.
Marvel like formula thing. But like
Yeah.
it, whatever happened, just to one-off movies that are just
Hmm.
it's a fun movie. We made it. Just enjoy it.
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm looking right now. It's got a 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like what the hell is that?
Hmm. But look at the audience score. It's
Yeah,
it's like 90.
yeah. Like
I think overall,
88%. Yeah, 88%.
yeah.
And then on Google, it says 83% like the movie. IMDb
Yeah.
is 6.5. Like, these are much more. I would give it probably like a 7.5 for me, Like, it's an
Hmm.
enjoyable movie that's just fun to watch. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to
I mean,
be like crazy, like
yeah.
Academy Award,
Hmm.
quality. I don't think
Yeah,
it's not made to be that.
and frankly, I do think that people are underselling the story a bit, because I think it like the fact, the whole storyline with the villain Sabak is very like generic, who cares kind of thing. But
Yeah,
I feel like Black Adam himself, his character's story and arc is actually pretty interesting and pretty unique for the most part, because they didn't just straight up have a thing where like, oh, he got chosen by the wizards and then they reconsidered their decision. That's what it seemed like at first, but as you see the story go on, his son was actually chosen,
yeah.
and then his son gave him his powers to save his life, which I thought was an interesting twist. It made things pretty interesting and kind of made sense why, you know, the wizards, like kind of made sense why he's not, a grand champion character, why he is a more of an anti-hero, because that is something that kind of never really made a whole lot of sense about Black Adam's character. Like, why would the Wizards choose him if he was that like
But
bad of a
yeah,
guy?
he's an
Like,
asshole.
are the Wizards that stupid? You know. So I think it makes more sense because this was a bit of a deviation from the comics too, but I kind of like it because I think it makes more sense that they would choose somebody who they deemed worthy, but then that person passed off the gift,
Mhm.
to somebody else. I think, and that was like his whole character arc. Pretty much was that he didn't really want the powers; he was given to them, by his son, but then his son died because of it. So basically, everything he did was just like he didn't care anymore because his son he already got revenge. His son died to give him those powers, and he didn't really want them. And he even kind of went through a crisis of, character where he was like, all I can do is hurt people.
Mhm.
But then by the end, he decided to use his powers for good, but on his own terms, not in a typical heroic way. I did like that they kept him an anti hero.
Yeah.
I was a little afraid going into it by the end they'd be like, well, you're a full fledged hero now. I'm glad that they kept him anti-hero ish.
Yeah.
He's still kind of beating to the beat of his own drum.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about like the plot lines that they have in it, and I would
Mm-hmm.
say the plot with him and his kid and finding out like what that story is
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a lot more enjoyable than the actual
Mm-hmm.
overlying plot with uh Sabak and
Yeah.
all that. It's like, oh well, you already know that's gonna happen. At
Yeah.
the end, I think it was a lot more interesting to see how like he
Mm-hmm.
got his power from, because
Mm-hmm.
we thought it was him all along that got it, but then it was actually his kid. He saved him, gave it to him.
Yeah.
Then he died. Then he was rage filled. He killed everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and then he got locked away. I think that was a
Mm-hmm.
lot more interesting, and they kept it, kind of suspenseful the whole time. You didn't really know. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we've seen it before, like with oh, the family friend. He's just there to like this is going back to the main plot.
Right.
He's like, oh, I've
Yeah.
been here the whole time. I've just been studying, blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
then he
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
up, I'm actually bad. Look at me.
Yeah. Like, oh no.
I would never guessed it.
We didn't know that 2 minutes
Yeah,
in.
it's like, oh man, that guy looks a little evil. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's
I
got a
wonder if he's
standoffish.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I think overall the plot is just kind of like, yep, it's there. I think it gets a
Mm-hmm.
pass.
Yeah.
But there's a couple things where it's like it's a little ham-handed, like at the start when it's like going over like the
Yeah.
voiceover. It's like, okay,
Yeah. I
information,
find that
information. I never really
just
liked
an
that.
information dump. Yeah, I that is definitely a pet peeve of mine. Yeah, so
Yeah,
when I first saw the movie, that bothered me, but
I I think it's like, well,
the more I've seen, like I've seen the movie a few times now, and like it bothers me less and less.
I always go back to think like,
Yeah,
how else am I gonna get this information?
right. I mean, I kind of would have preferred to just see like a few like 5 or 10 extra minutes and just kind of like show because they still showed a lot. They didn't really need the exposition.
That is true. Like you could have just okay, take out the overlay of the voice, and then just
Mm-hmm.
have the scenes that they have. It's like okay, so these guys are
Mm-hmm.
slaves. They're getting oppressed, and then he's not,
Mm-hmm.
and then he's like a symbol of hope, and then he's gonna get
Yeah.
executed.
Yeah.
You can kind of gather a lot of it. It's just there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of younger people watching these movies,
Yeah.
and like
And I know they did I know they did some reshoots for this, so I don't know if that ended up like if there was like a longer version of the scene, but they cut it up and added voiceover later.
yeah,
You know,
which I
but
think
yeah,
I was over like I don't like it
that was
that
one
much,
of the
but like
that was one of the few things I would have changed that like would have made it a much better movie.
yeah.
At least plot wise. Yeah, and I gotta say that the costumes for this movie were really freaking good. Like I think the Black Adam costume is very unique
Yeah,
because it didn't have any padding in it. Um, you know, Dwayne Johnson's like hulking frame just kind of filled the suit, but also like it was like kind of made of rubber. Like if you see the like the set photos, it looked like it was made like of pure latex, pretty much. But in the actual movie, like it looked really good.
Yeah, I'm looking at some pictures here. Like, okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm making the comparison in my head. Zachary
Mm-hmm.
Levi and Shazam
Mm-hmm.
versus
Yeah, it
Black
was very
Adam
obvious
and this,
padding.
where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you guys obviously did a 180. This looks a lot
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
It's not, it's got texture to the whole suit. It
Mm-hmm.
looks
Mm-hmm.
really cool compared to just
Yeah.
smooth latex. It's
Yeah.
just a little weird. And like when he first shows up out of his prison, he's got his
Mm-hmm.
bodysuit on. Then he's also got his
That
cloak.
cloak.
That cloak
Mm-hmm.
looks,
That was
it's
really
really
badass. Yeah.
cool. It's
Yeah.
badass, and
Well, and
they did a really really good job with his whole
mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
thematic like
Yeah.
theme.
Yeah.
I think it was really well done.
Well, yeah, think at the end, I really liked when he had like kind of a more comic accurate suit with like more gold in it,
Hmm.
and like they had the actual cape
Yeah,
that turned out looking really cool. And Hawkman's suit looks super cool.
yeah,
They did a really good job with that. And Doctor Fate looks great, though I'm pretty sure it was like mostly, if not all, CGI, but it's still like it looked really, really good.
yeah. Yeah. I really like Hawkman. Hawkman's a really cool, like a really great
Mm-hmm.
character that
Yeah.
you don't ever see that much. And
Yeah.
like the wings that they had, like
Mm-hmm.
it just it was pretty awe-inspiring to see. And
Yeah.
when he's flying around, it was
They chose some really cool characters to put in this movie.
yeah,
Like to draw a wider audience, yeah, like they could have thrown in, like Superman or Wonder Woman or something. But I think just the fact that they brought in some like slightly obscure characters, to general audiences, just to like actually finally have them on the big screen was kind of cool. Like I did appreciate that as a DC fan.
yeah. It's kind of like the Suicide Squad when they just like it's this bunch of there's a couple main characters that and then they have a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of like kind of side stuff that you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I might actually have to Google this. But
Right. Yeah.
I thought they did really, really good with the
Mm-hmm.
characters, the
Mm-hmm.
way they selected them.
Yeah.
Um,
I thought like Cyclone and Atom Smasher, like they were kind of just there, but like not in an annoying way. I
yeah,
don't
I
think.
think they
Like
were a
I
welcome
thought they were
addition.
fine.
They were mostly
Yeah,
there
like
for comedy.
yeah,
They didn't add
they were
much plot.
likable enough
Yeah,
though to
they didn't annoy me the entire movie.
yeah, yeah,
The really the only important people was Dr. Fate, Hawkman, and Black Adam.
yeah,
They did most of the
yeah.
fighting. Adam
Hmm.
Smasher did a little bit. Cyclone was a little obsolete, I think,
A
but
little bit, yeah.
mostly. But I think the addition of Doctor Fate to the movie, I think that
Hmm.
was one of the best decisions that they made.
Hmm. Yeah,
I think that character I
definitely.
think that character kind of made the movie for me.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just
He was the
so
one I was most excited to see
it
going
was
into it.
yeah, I think it was just very interesting to watch that character
Hmm.
kind of interact with everybody else and
Hmm.
interact with Black Adam and
Hmm.
the way the plot goes at the end. I just
Yeah,
I think that that's probably my favorite character about the whole
yeah,
movie. I think it
yeah.
was really good. Um,
Yeah, I was kind of bummed he died, but at
yeah,
the same time, knowing Doctor Fate's character, like there's been multiple incarnations of Doctor Fate, so it's not like a, one and done. Though now, the future of
yeah.
DC a little uncertain now, but um,
But now they have kind of a cool base if they wanted to use Black Adam
yeah,
in their new universe. They
yeah,
have a really cool base to go off of.
yeah,
Especially with the costume design.
hmm,
I think the costume
yeah,
design was badass. Yeah, it looked
yeah,
really
yeah,
amazing.
absolutely. I think also what was interesting was like Hawkman being so devoted to like not killing people,
Hmm.
and Black Adam just not caring. Which Black Hawkman in the comics was a lot more like he was much more of a warrior. So in a lot of ways, he didn't care about not killing people. But there have been a lot of different incarnations of Hawkman, because of like
Yeah,
he's a character that's been rebooted a lot. Plus, he's been reincarnated a lot, like in the actual continuity itself.
yeah,
So I was kind of curious whether there was some sort of like, because it seemed like he and Doctor Fate had a past, like they'd been fighting alongside each other for a while. I'm kind of wondering if at some point Hawkman wasn't more into killing and everything, but then he kind of something made him change his mind. But I thought the interactions between him and Black Adam about that were kind of interesting. I feel like in a way it's almost like two corners of the internet.
Yeah.
I think like it reminded me a bit of that scene in Daredevil, the series where Daredevil and Punisher are like talking on the rooftop and they're both like arguing their own perspectives.
Hmm.
Matt saying that killing is wrong all the time and Punisher just being like, "Well, you're a half measure, when I put them down, they stay down. Obviously it wasn't as in-depth in this movie, but I don't really think that was the point. I don't think there was a point. Like not every movie has to have some sort of agenda where it's like this is the main theme of the movie that we are trying to impress upon
But
you.
but
You
also,
know,
like it's like, okay, what are you trying to tell us? Killing people is bad.
hmm
Oh yeah, I agree. I
right?
agree.
I
We're
know
not all
it's like
anti-heroes. We're not just gonna go out in the streets and start like killing criminals.
right, like it seemed to me it was more the characters themselves. Like
Yeah,
there had to be friction between them, because Black Adam was killing people willy nilly, and Hawkman
let's try to
was
save
not,
them as
yeah, was not cool with that. But then so like they both made good points, and it was more like the two characters butting heads than like a theme of the whole movie
Mhm.
necessarily. I don't think that this movie was really trying hard to have some sort of deeper message. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it was like fun eye candy with a decent enough story and with decent enough twists that it held my interest when it
which
wasn't action
which I
packed.
think is just what you want in a superhero
Yeah.
movie that's not going
Right.
for culmination of like all these movies. Like I
Hmm.
think a lot of people got spoiled with how well like the
Yeah.
Marvel universe came together, and then when they
Hmm.
see a movie like Black Adam, that's kind of like if it did better, they'd probably have a number two coming out, which I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like murky waters right now,
Hmm.
but I think if this was just a one-off movie, I think it was an enjoyable watch. And it was much more interesting and fun to watch than
Hmm.
a lot of the Marvel movies that have been coming out recently.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. I think the. Oh my god, I'm going brain dead. Hold on.
well,
Ugh.
I think Dwayne The Rock Johnson did a really good job in this movie.
As do I.
Yeah, I thought he did really good.
Now, I was gonna have a section asking you like about like what you want to see in the future for Black Adam, but given recent news that has come to light, or not so recent by the time this gets uploaded, but still, it seems like the future of Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam is a little murky, like you said.
Hmm.
First of all, I want to talk about its box office um earnings, which weren't amazing.
That's not stellar.
Um, yeah, so it earned about 400 million worldwide, and it had a 195 million dollar budget, but that doesn't include the other costs like promotion and distribution. Dwayne Johnson said he cited some financiers who, and he said that the movie made between 52 and 72 million. There have been other reports refuting that, saying the movie lost money. Either way, it really wasn't a box office success.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I was hoping it would be, but it's not super surprising because A, it's DC, not Marvel. At this point, Marvel has like become such a mainstream thing, the MCU, that people flock to those movies even if they look like crap. You know, um, DC has to kind of like prove itself even more just to make the same amount of money.
Hmm.
But plus, this movie wasn't the Batman.
Yeah,
It wasn't, it was
that's
just
a
trying
much
to be a.
more worldwide character. A lot of people don't know who Black Adam is or even care.
Also, like it wasn't like a serious drama,
Yeah,
which seems to like pull people in more. I feel like if like a popcorn flick is going to do well, it has to be a big like attention pulling franchise, which DC kind of is, but Black Adam, like nobody knew who the hell he was besides comic fans. And Hawkman, Doctor Fate, they're all characters that are well known to comic fans, but not to general audiences. So there wasn't like a huge like
you
character
draw.
there.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
like just the average, comic book movie
Hmm.
viewers. That's gonna be like, oh yeah, that looks totally interesting. I'm gonna go watch that. And you could go watch
Yeah,
something else.
yeah. So it's not super surprising. It seemed like Warner Brothers was partially hoping, or I kept hearing stuff that Warner Brothers was partially hoping that, having Superman in the movie, like as a cameo, would draw people. But I don't know if that's really true because it seemed like an afterthought. Like they did like
Totally
film the
was.
cameo. They did film the cameo like without Henry Cavill, but then once the new leadership came to Warner Brothers, Dwayne Johnson finally got the go ahead to bring in Henry Cavill. So I don't think the movie itself, like Warner Brothers, was resting their laurels on Henry Cavill Superman being in it.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, but anyway, despite whatever box office earnings it may or may not have gotten, it seems like things are going to be very much rebooted with James Gunn's leadership. Now, I did want to read what Dwayne Johnson posted just the other day from when we were recording this. He posted this on Twitter and Instagram. My passionate friends, I wanted to give you a long-awaited Black Adam update regarding the character's future in the new DC universe. James Gunn and I connected, and Black Adam will not be in their first chapter of storytelling. However, DC and Seven Bucks, which is his production company, have agreed to continue exploring the most valuable ways Black Adam can be utilized in future DC multiverse chapters. James and I have known each other for years and have always rooted for each other to succeed. It's no different now, and I will always root for DC and Marvel to win and win big. James Gunn actually quoted this tweet and said, "Love at The Rock, and I'm always excited to see what he and Seven Bucks do next. Can't wait to collaborate soon." So I feel like this leaves the door open a bit,
Yeah.
like the vague wording from Dwayne Johnson and James
I
Gunn,
think
like the
it's very
way.
specific. The way that
Well,
it seems like it's, just a, you know, something he put
and
together
the
real quick, but I think it's very specific in the way that he's saying. Like,
yeah, the way he said Black Adam will not be in the first chapter of storytelling.
yeah.
Like I can't tell if that's just like hopeful thinking on his part, or if that's like on purpose, like maybe down the line, like after the quote unquote first
I
chapter
think I
is
think
done.
I think it's very specific, and I think he's
Hmm.
saying that, this first like chapter being like, let's say
Hmm.
phase is, let's say,
Hmm.
whatever, 5 movies, another TV show or something like that. First phase,
Yeah.
that's like 5 years or whatever. Then,
Yeah.
6 years from now, Black Adam might make a
Yeah.
reappearance, maybe in a TV show as a cameo or something
Uh-huh.
in it, and then he could come off of that and be a main character for that.
Yeah.
Maybe a main character in somebody else's movie, something like that.
Hmm.
Because you already have the introduction to him.
Yeah.
You've already done all the work for an intro movie, so why not
Hmm.
utilize that? So I think I think this movie will be added, just not right now, like he said.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. I do hope whenever they do decide to bring in Black Adam to the new DCU, I do hope it's Dwayne Johnson because I really liked his portrayal.
mhm.
And I'm not really that. I mean, he's only been in one movie so far. I'd really like to see him do more with the character. I wouldn't want to see Black Adam get recast
And also,
after
it just kind of
one
sucks
movie.
whenever they do that. It's just like
Yeah.
it's one guy's work. He he
Hmm.
he set up, like,
Well,
it's
yeah, he
it's
spent
him.
15 years trying to get this movie off the ground.
Yeah, it's him. This is like what
Hmm.
this is his movie, so you
Hmm.
shouldn't take that away from him if they do recast
Yeah.
him or something like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, um, all we can kind of do is just kind of wait and see what James Gunn, everybody
Yeah.
else is doing, and just kind of hope they
Yeah.
make the right decisions.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of not clear, at least when we're recording this.
It's very, very hard to like sift through the garbage.
It really is because there's a lot of people being really reactionary and being like, "Fire James Gunn," and just a lot of really crappy rumors or people speculate. Like there's some scoopers that are basically speculating things but acting like they're scoops. They're taking the scoop that they have and twisting it and like presenting it through their lens instead of just presenting the facts. So they're saying like, well, if this is happening, then this is happening too. So it's like, you're not really reporting anything. You're just giving
Giving your
your,
opinion on your one slice of information.
yeah.
That
So there's
it's
and also a lot of the news outlets like Hollywood Reporter and Variety have been reporting a lot of bull crap. Like Variety reported even before the Henry Cavill announcement that James Gunn was eyeing Robert Pattinson's Batman to be like the DCU Batman, and he like said that's patently false.
yeah.
So I don't know where all these stupid rumors are coming from, but it seems
Well,
like
it's
there's a
just
lot of bull crap out there.
I think it's a lot of outlets, like news outlets, that
Hmm.
are just like, we need to make money off of this.
Yeah,
Nothing is
yeah,
solid, so you can literally
hmm,
make an article saying anything you want, and
yeah,
people will click on it because people want to know, oh, what's going on with the new Superman movie. Well, you could
hmm,
literally say, well, it's going to be Henry Cavill for the next 25 years.
yeah,
Not,
right, yeah,
people will still click on that article and
hmm,
clicks their money. So
yeah,
that's where a lot of the misinformation comes from, is just people spouting a bunch of
hmm.
garbage.
Yeah, which I mean, it surprises me to a certain extent that these more, somewhat more reliable sources are doing this, which it shouldn't. But there's a lot of like websites that are just straight up clickbait and crappy opinions. But with say Variety and Hollywood Reporter and stuff, like these news outlets are, actually have like reliable sources and they usually vet their sources a lot. So I'm kind of surprised how much garbage is coming out of these like supposedly more reliable outlets.
Mm.
So now, like, I just like don't believe anything that doesn't come out of the mouth of like somebody directly involved with this stuff.
Mostly just James Gunn's Twitter. That's really like the
Yeah,
only thing you can take.
James Gunn
That's really
and the
all.
actual actors involved.
Yeah,
Like Henry Cavill released an actual statement.
yeah, where he's like,
So did
yep,
Dwayne Johnson.
we're not,
Yeah.
proceeding with me as Superman.
The thing is too, which a lot of people are kind of like overlooking, but James Gunn did say something about like looking forward to working with Henry in the future, or like they had talked about working together in the future. So,
Yeah, because
it's not clear what that means exactly.
I
He's,
think in my hopeful brain, it would mean that James Gunn will write and direct or whatever his Superman movie. His young
mm-hmm,
Superman, not
mm-hmm,
not child Superman, but young adult Superman.
yeah, yeah,
And then they'll be like, okay, yeah, yeah, we're gonna get a guy that looks a lot like Henry Cavill but younger.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
guess what? We're making a new one with Henry Cavill later on. And then
Right.
that'll be
That would be cool.
that would be my favorite scenario.
Or if they do like in like 8 years or something, they do like a Spider-Man No Way Home type movie with Superman.
Yeah.
That would be super cool, bring back Henry Cavill or something. Or there are like older versions of Superman in the comics that, you know, come to like the main universe. They could do some sort of like multiverse crossovers like that or
Hmm.
something. I'd be kind of down with it with anything. I would just like I do hope though that it's not just like the end of Henry Cavill as Superman forever. That would suck.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I think I'm fine.
All right. Well, in that case, that was Terrifier 2 and Black Adam. If you have not seen either of these movies, you should definitely check them out.
Yep, I would totally recommend.
Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. Be sure to check us out on YouTube and social media at Casual Experts. And check out James's Instagram if you want. Welcome to Papa's house.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And please give this podcast a rating, hopefully a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on, and share it and tell your friends, all that stuff. And yeah, we will see you next time.
Yes, sir.